Okay, so another thing, I've been looking into. So basically, I've been doing a more sophisticated and comprehensive, what is it? Comparative mythology, theology, comparative religion, and between like old mythologies, old religions, and basically I made breakthroughs of this because of my work with Arbitel and understanding the planets a lot more. Also, I made some breakthroughs understanding, what the nature of the powers of the zodiac actually are. Like, what is it actually doing? What are the stars actually like doing out there? Okay, they're there. Oh, it's doing something. Yeah, it's doing something for sure. I don't know. I'm making fun of ancient aliens here. Oh, the Pleiades were thought to be a big deal for a long time. Maybe they actually are. Oh, you think? um, you know. So here's what I'm thinking. I think. Um, I think Moloch is the same as Nandi. And it's just a bad. I think what's happening is Shiva is actually completely evil, but in the Hindu setting, the Vedic culture, have to understand, is very sophisticated, it's very civilized. And so this civilized culture is then able to harmonize, the wild hunter. I mean, you have to understand how comprehensive Vedic culture really is. The hermit that's out in the woods doing fucking nothing, we don't even have that harmonized in our own society. That person isn't a part of our society, but in the Vedic society, he's absolutely part of our society. The hermit, groups of hermits living together, is part of the society. It's an institution, and anyone is free to go and involve themselves in that institution, and there's rules. Like, we don't have that today, that's something that's gone by the wayside. I mean, even in medieval Europe they had it. Even through Christianity they had it. I mean, modern monasteries, they kind of have it, but it's really not the same. Really, even if we talk about the medieval period, it's not perfect. So, but yeah, Moloch is that evil, destructive thing, and it's terrible. And today, I think I was watching a video about this, about how we are doing child sacrifice now, but it's like, well, first of all, Epstein Island stuff, very, very Bohemian Grove, very real appeasement of Moloch. But then also sacrificing, like, I was watching this video about how school is the sacrifice of our time, of the children's childhoods are almost ruined by American school system. So it's like a sacrifice of the childhood. The child didn't die, but the childishness is sort of in a way destroyed, and then it makes everyone into a robot. And it's if you understanding that, it's a very clean system, but it's a way to stave off destruction. It's a way to stave off the collapse of society, the destructive elements, etc., etc. And it's the Freemasonic institutions doing this. Now I just made the breakthrough as I'm talking now. Oh my God, this is how the Freemasonic system and the corporations and everything stave off collapse, is because the destructive element is appeased. So Moloch is like almost a syncretism of Nandi and Shiva, which is super interesting because, Nandi is a bull, by the way. It's super interesting because this happens a lot where the Vedic stuff is a lot more comprehensive. There's a lot more to it. Like, for example, you'll have Shakti, but then Shakti will have a whole bunch of different like versions of her, and so there's the deities open themselves to these yogis, to the sadhus, to the all these different the brahmanas, all of these different classes of wise men, because the Vedic society is entirely religious. You know what I mean? Every facet of it is religious. The kshatriya, the warrior class, is war is basically a pastime. It's like sports. You know what I mean? But it's actually less intense than we would see sports. We're actually more fanatical about sports than they were about war. Probably. Um, so, um, maybe that's not quite right. Yeah, I'm feeling that I'm onto something there, but it's half baked. But the kshatriyas, like look at Arjuna and Bhima. So Arjuna and Bhima are going around, they're going on these adventures and fighting, but they're fighting in the name of religion, and they're discovering something within themselves, and they're going on that journey of inner discovery, and everyone in their life is an avatar of this person or that person. And I think, perhaps, I think that there was something big going on in this situation, and that these gods did, in some sense, descend. I don't know if they entirely descended, but they, sometimes your best friend is a god. Sometimes the people around you are deities and you don't know it. And, I think that does happen. I think that is a real phenomenon. But I think also we're all sort of channeling some of the energy of these beings. And I think it's helpful for me to look at Lucia and see, the gods and goddesses playing through her life force, through her persona. It's helpful to look at, different, like, I had a vision of Indra, and he was this boy with this very boyish face, and he was just kind of this angry boy. He looked just like this vision of Indra. It was basically, I had a vision of him, but it was Indra, and he had lightning and everything else in the vision. And so then I felt like I needed to sort of, sabotage him, because it's like, Indra's the enemy. And I still feel, I've patched it up a bit with Indra, but I still feel that way. So, yeah, that's sort of what I'm looking at now. Or that's what I'm thinking about it now. And I think this is a big thing, that the Hindu, or the Vedic society was so comprehensive and really was able to digest a lot of these things. And it makes a lot of sense, too, because in the modern society, these dark things are like in some corner, and the Freemasons only get to see, how the sausages are made, and the regular people don't. Back in old societies weren't that civilized. Old societies, it was hand to mouth, survival, the tribe. They used to ask what city-state you're from, because, it was practically Mad Max, but with, Bronze Age technology. So, it makes sense to me, the way I've had this epiphany, in the last few days, that, like, the Vedic culture doesn't really have these terrible, awful gods that are just there and just, mess everything up, basically. But at the same time, like there's Shiva. I think Shiva is a really interesting way to talk about, thing to talk about here, because Shiva is, destroyer, but also, by praying to Shiva and everything else, you can delay destruction. You can, he's the Lord of Ignorance, and so, ignorant people, thugs, thieves, whatever, maybe not thieves, but, different, the destruction of society, death, murderers, serial killers, all of that comes under Shiva. So the most horrible things are essentially under Shiva's energy. Tamas, delusion, mental illness, a whole bunch of things, because he's Trimurti, he's one of the three energies that makes up everything. And then, we look at, like, Moloch, who's much, there's not so much the sense, okay, perhaps you appease Moloch so that, things don't get destroyed. But with Shiva, it's a lot more, oh, the destruction is actually cleansing the universe, where Moloch, it's like, oh, he's the scary, destructive god, almost. I mean, perhaps the ancients, understood Moloch to be, more, and I've heard that Moloch was actually a type of ceremony and wasn't actually a god. It was just Baal, and it's a certain ceremony to Baal, and scholars confused it to be an actual god. I don't think, I personally, just intuition, just putting my feelers out, and, with deities, of course, when you put feelers out, something comes back. I think Moloch, perhaps the name is not referring to him, but I feel that there was something like that. I think that Moloch was a deity, separate from Baal. Which would fit with the Vedic stuff also, because in Hinduism you have Nandi and Shiva, and then you have Dharma and Indra are different. So there's like two different. There's not just one bull. There's at least two. There's probably more. I can think of a third one at least, Mahishasura. But see, that's another interesting thing that I think of. Like, Moloch is an institution. Apophis is an institution. These are not, I shouldn't say institution. They're gods that control a facet of reality. They're complete. Whereas, the demons are disrupting that. They're trying to disrupt the natural order, and they have to be gotten rid of as a result. Which is a really interesting facet of the Vedic sort of worldview, is that, there's gods for ignorance, there's gods for destruction, there's gods for the dark beings, like the dark lower beings are under the power of Saturn, but that's not really demons still, or what is it, the Yamadutas, the servants of Yama, the god of death. That's still not, that's still not demons. That's psychopomps, basically. So, this is the thing that's so interesting about the Vedic literatures, is just how much depth and wealth of information there actually is. And, like Astras, I don't, it's not really, maybe in this way Christianity is also a little bit advanced, because there's angels and demons, and then the angels are controllers of all kinds of things, like angels in sort of esoteric Christianity. I'm not exactly sure where the whole thing of angels, like Jeremiah, Raphael, some of these non-biblical angels, I'm not exactly sure where they come from, but they control elements and planets and everything else. Like, there's some threads you can even look at with angels that fit in with the Vedic stuff. For example, the angel of Mars is Samael. And you can get healing from Samael. There's some different things there that are really interesting. But then there's Samael, it's like a different Samael that I think is, I don't know if it said if he's the father of Samael of Mars, but I think this Samael is of Da'ath, or maybe it's of, in the Qliphoth, which is, Lurianic Kabbalah, which isn't thought to be valid by everyone. Also, I'm thinking Qliphoth, I've been playing with the idea of Qliphoth, I don't know if it fits, outside, in regular Kabbalah, in regular Kabbalah, the concept of Qliphoth is, I think it's more interesting and rich, just from what I've heard from, like, one rabbi, and what I've heard with Lurianic Kabbalah. That being said, Crowley used it, and if Crowley used it, he astral projected and saw some shit, and he found it valuable. But anyways, the point here is that, so there's Shiva, who is pretty much very similar to Samael in esoteric Christianity. And I say esoteric Christianity, like the esoteric, taking into account like a lot of different esoteric traditions around Christianity. So anyways, Shiva is father of Kartikeya, and Kartikeya is the god of Mars. He is the god of war and everything. Maybe I'm incorrect about him being the god of Mars, but I don't think so. I looked it up and saw one thing where he was the god of war, but it wasn't like airtight as far as I'm concerned. I think it was like, you may have seen it on one Wikipedia page or something. I mean, Mongala is the planet Mars, and then it's ruled. I think then it's logical to think it would be ruled by Kartikeya. This also kind of clicks into Arbitel, where the planets have their own intelligence, and gods are kind of hooking on to the energy of the planet itself. So the planet as an intelligence is bigger than the gods associated with it, which I think is really cool. Arbitel is really rich. Dio. Okay, so yeah, like I was looking into Babylonian astrology. That's how I made these breakthroughs. Is that astrology? It seems like when you talk about astrology or magic, the research that people did that comes up with it is a lot more powerful because like people like astrology, right? If I just go and I search mythology, I don't find anything because no one cares about random stories that aren't part of a magical system, I guess. I mean, I care, but when paired with astrology, of course, these stories are far more powerful. But apparently, Taurus. The story of Taurus sounds a lot like Nandi, once again. I think it's a little bit of a combination of Nandi and Shiva in the Babylonian myth. Also, like Apis the bull, but it's the bull of heaven. And, no, sorry, it's not a combination of them. It's like, there's Anu, and then the bull serves Anu, which sounds a lot like Shiva and Nandi. Unless it's supposed to be like Dharma and Indra, but I don't think so.